To item number 26. Bless you.
I pulled this item for discussion just in case anybody has any questions. It's an agreed to item, agreed to by all the neighbors involved, which is two different neighborhood associations, and by the developer, and as well as our city staff who helped us come up with a solution that would work for everyone. The reason it's an IFC is because it just requires direction to the city staff to implement, and basically it's implementing a traffic control device that is not going to be paid for by the city. It's going to be paid for by the developer, but an appropriate traffic control device to eliminate unauthorized cut-through automotive traffic on a new roadway extension. And so I just pulled it in case anyone had any questions about it.
I do.
Okay.
Ms. Houston.
And so when we usually in our neighborhoods do traffic control devices, it's not a resolution. So can you tell me what's the difference between this one, why we need a resolution to do this?
Yes, because I will make an attempt and then I will ask staff to help me. Basically, this is a new roadway extension, so it's not an existing road. And because it's that situation, it's not like putting traffic bumps on an existing road. So so it is a little unusual in that regard, and that's the reason for all the resolution does is simply direct the city staff to take this action. It's an action that they can take otherwise, but because it's an unusual or not a typical approach, not unusual, but not a typical approach, they needed direction. Did I say that correctly? Or
yes, ma'am. Robert Spiller, Department of Transportation for the City of Austin. It is our understanding that because with the passage of Imagine Austin, that the policy of the city as set by council is for full connectivity. This offers many of those connectivity issues, but specifically restricts free auto access through here, free-flowing auto access. And so because we felt that we needed direction to specifically restrict the types of access through this corridor, and so this is something that we think we can do effectively because it is a private road that will transition to city characteristics or city ownership. And so what I believe council is doing is simply tailoring city policy to this particular link, and so that's why it's different.
So it's a new.
Can I ask a
Sure.
question? I'm sorry. So I'm even more confused. So this is a device to limit access rather than connectivity.
That's correct. And so my understanding is the city policy is to promote full connectivity.
Right.
And so this will allow bicycle and pedestrian access or connectivity. It will allow connectivity for service vehicles and emergency vehicles, but for general auto traffic, it would deny that
And
access
so
through you.
it needs to be in the form of a resolution because this is different than usual. How?
Well, again, my understanding is the city policy set by council is for full connectivity, and this is less than full activity. And so what council is doing in this particular case is changing the definition of connectivity.
Thank you. That you said it 3 times, and I
I'm sorry.
figured it out. So.
Well, and I would just differ slightly. I don't
Yeah.
consider it changing the definition of connectivity. I consider it looking at the definition of connectivity in a broader sense because it does allow for what's important to these particular neighborhoods, which is the pedestrian connectivity to be able to walk to the park, as well as the bicycle connectivity, whereas avoiding the problems that allowing this new road to allow automotive traffic would create from a safety standpoint from the neighborhoods. So to me, it's an interpretation of the existing policy of connectivity rather than changing any policy.
Thank you. That's probably better said. Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Poole.
does this area have sidewalks throughout on Aldwyche?
So, no, it does not. The new connection would provide sidewalks to, if you're familiar, from the cul-de-sac all the way to the new the city park that is to the, let me get the directions right, I think to the north.
Right. Is there a street that's kind of colloquially, locally called Dead Man's Curve in this area? And why is it called that?
You know, there are a number of neighborhoods that point to a curve in their neighborhood and call them Dead Man's Curves. But this neighborhood does have a curve that is perceived to be very sharp, and there is concern from this neighborhood that additional traffic would cause traffic concerns at that location. That said, there was a traffic study done, and my engineers concur with the finding that there is sufficient site distance to provide for safe stopping distances where the new street would connect into, I think it's Del Corto, is that correct?
Yeah.
I may have the streets wrong, I'm sorry.
And the history on the roads, they're essentially old rural roads, is that right? No berms, you said no sidewalks.
There are no sidewalks. I think current drainage is very limited, and so, yes, they are very narrow, traditionally what we would term rural-type roads. They're very, this design is a frequent design that when we look back at roads we've inherited from through annexations, they're quite often some of the older roads. I can show you numbers of them all over town where we've inherited what is more appropriate for a rural characteristic that's become in the middle of our city.
And what we have here, I think, Councilmember Kitchen, what we have here is an agreement with the developer and the surrounding neighborhoods that was crafted over a number of months and fairly intense negotiation. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's come to the table. Everybody agrees that it's a good solution, and I want to thank the staff for helping us come up with a solution that works for everybody.
I would say, Councilmember, if you'll allow me, there is a third set of parties here that this also works for, and that's the garbage trucks and
Yes.
the occasional large
NEMS.
moving truck that needs to get through here, and so we can accommodate those on a
That's right.
specialty basis.
The city services are accommodated also. So.
Mr. Zimmerman, sorry.
And I just wanted to say, thank Mr. Spiller in particular, some of the early conversations about how to solve this specific problem were a little thorny and tight knots. And I want to thank you specifically for helping find a way to address the real concerns of the neighbors and also to allow the development to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman's turn, then Ms. Houston.
Just a quick question, yeah, Mr. Spiller. Since it's a public resolution here, could you tell me a little bit about that technology that's going to be used, and what is the budget for the project here?
It is essentially a crash gate that is built in a way that pedestrians and bicycles and can bypass the gate safely without another vehicle. What that also does is preserve the drainage that's contemplated as part of the street. So, you know, all of our streets act as a drainage device, the curbs, to channel water to the nearest inlet, and so that allows this to continue that way. The thinking is that it would have a combination lock on it, and so the garbage delivery, or I should say Austin Resource Recovery, can open the gate and use it. But likewise, you know, when a large truck gets into one of these areas, we can let them have the combination and then change the combination and let them go through after they've gone through, shut it, and change the combination. Emergency vehicles, ambulances, typically will carry bolt cutters. Instead of trying to worry which ambulance is headed to that gate, they'll just cut the chain and go through, and then we'll repair it afterwards. The cost is contemplated at approximately $10,000, and so it's, in terms of traffic control devices, it's equivalent to some of the others. It is critical that we understand that this is a street that is not yet owned by the public, and so there is not a current traveling public that has some stake in that maneuver.
Okay, one final follow-up on that. Some of my friends are now using electric battery-assisted bicycles. Kind of cool. They have an electric motor in them. How would you, or would it stop motorized small mopeds or motorized bicycles, motorized? How is that controlled, I guess?
So there's a difference between a motorcycle and a motorized bicycle. Motorized bicycle, it's defined, I believe, by state law by the cubic you know what I'm talking about, the size of the motor. And so electric bikes that are just really meant to give the assist are legal to use in the bike lanes, and so therefore would be able to go by. Technically speaking, a full motorcycle would not be legal to use in the bike lanes, although I will tell you this is probably going to be porous enough that a motorcycle could get through. And so I'm not sure that there's many, hopefully, but that is a risk.
But it's voluntary compliance, I guess.
With motorcyclists, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have two more things we're going to discuss. Also, 27, 28 might be a lengthy item. We also have an executive session where we can talk about the Garza case. Is there further conversation on this item, number 26?
Yes, I just wanted to have one more clarification. So for other neighborhoods who find themselves in similar purposes, this is a tool, because again, we're setting a precedent here. So is this a tool that people could use to help with the walkability, bikeability, and where there are no sidewalks and where there are curves that are dangerous?
So, Councilmember, this doesn't actually address the curve issue. That's a separate street. This does make a dramatic change to the accessibility. I think if it were, and we're going out of our way to try to not make this a precedent, quite honestly, by coming to council to ask you to override what we believe is, or to modify the understanding of the policy. My concern is on if this were asked to be applied to an existing street, there is the traveling public generally out there that has some ownership over that connectivity.
No, I'm talking about in districts where there is no traveling street and we're annexing as we go.
So if it's a new street,
right,
typically it's a developer that's building the street and then handing it over to the city. I think, yes, it could be contemplated in that situation.
Okay.
The concern is an existing neighborhood wanting to put these devices up to increase an exclusivity of that neighborhood,
or just the health and safety. There are no sidewalks. People are walking in the street. People are cutting through traffic. That kind of thing.
Yes.
And so your answer is yes, no.
On new streets.
On new streets,
I think
we
that
could
be contemplated. Yes.
Okay.
Anything else on this item 26? I guess it's then to item 27. It's a fee waiver. Mr. Kassar.